This is the Bearcast, presented by Bird Culchin Ford. Bird Culchin Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford is the #1 selling truck in Texas 43 years running. The Bearcast is also presented by WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System Dallas. Here's Craig Smoke and Grayson Grundhafer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Sikkim365.com Bearcast. I'm Craig Smoke, Sikkim365.com radio host, also team and recruiting reporter for Sikkim365, joined as always by Grayson Grundhafer, director of broadcasting, also team and recruiting reporter for Sikkim365. And we come to you nearly a week into fall camp for Baylor football. They broke practices late last week. They've already been on the field nearly every day since, and we just got word they'll be back there today as well, even though they were scheduled for a Wednesday session. Now they will have a Tuesday session, so we will have some stuff from that coming up a little bit later on, but we've got that. We've got some basketball news. We've also got a little bit of football recruiting to get into. And Grayson, how are we doing this week?
Doing good. Yeah, I'm actually just getting back from a little short vacation over the weekend, of course, right when fall camp starts, right? But yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive into conversation about a few of these things. Obviously, hearing great reports, hearing great things from a lot of the sources that I've talked to as well. And I think it's safe to say that there's a lot more energy this year than there was last year. And I think there's just going to be a marked difference on the field as well. And I think we're already seeing it with the start to fall camp.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we can tell, I mean, you tell me where you want to go with this, because I've been at every media session. I've written like 7 articles in the last 5 days. I mean, really for me, I've written a bunch lately and kind of have said everything that I've seen so far. So for you, what is sticking out about the start of fall camp at this point?
Yeah, I think obviously the energy is the first place you need to start, because, and we saw this in spring, honestly, so it's not surprising, but I do think that the ability the coaching staff had to build these relationships, I think there's just a lot of happier individuals in the room, and I just think that that's going to lead to great on-the-field change as well. And I'm very excited to see how this fall camp progresses with these changes. And I would say, you know, I think Dave Aranda is much more comfortable. I think the players are much more comfortable. I think that is really the area that I think leads to great success. And I think in 2019 we saw some of that for sure. I think they were coming off of a successful 2018 campaign that really gave them the confidence that they were going to be really good in 2019. This team is coming off of a 2-7 campaign, but they're coming off of one of the toughest seasons you're ever going to witness in college football. So I think there's just this happiness and appreciation for the fact that things are a little bit more normal, and you have the media there, and you're happier with your situation, with the coaching staff. And I think when you put all those things together, again, I just think you're looking at a team that could be in store for a pretty special season.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have the athletes, they seem to have the coaching, they seem to have the energy, like you said. You know, it's been all good from what I've been able to observe, and that's not much of practice. I mean, that's the tail end of most practices, but the vibes, so to speak, are certainly positive, and we've got to hear from quite a few players at this point. So what else has stood out to you from fall camp?
Yeah, Dave Aranda talking about how, and this was something that we reported back in Big 12 Media Days, because he said this during the breakout session, but essentially they want to have a quarterback named by week 1. And I think it will be before week 1. I think it will be in the lead up to the season starting against Texas State. I think it could come as early as, you know, maybe 2 weeks from now. That would be when classes officially start, and that would also be after their 2 scrimmages that are coming up the next 2 Saturdays as well. So I think it kind of goes in line with that kind of timeline potentially. And I could see that happening. Obviously, that would also be right around the end of fall camp as well. That's when you're actually gearing up for Texas State, more game planning and different things like that. So I found that to be very interesting. I'm in line with that belief. I do think they will name a quarterback before the game, and then kind of ride with that quarterback up until maybe they need to make a change, or up until they need to reevaluate the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea at this point who to wager on. I mean, I know that you've got your belief in Gary. Others have their belief in Jacob. Others think Shapen will be the guy eventually, or whatever the case. I have no idea. There's nothing to lead you to believe based on just the public things that are out there. There's no indication of who the quarterback is.
Yeah, and
there's zero.
Agree. But both you and I have said Zeno from the very beginning. We'll see if that happens though, because obviously a lot has changed since then, and a lot more practices that are still to come. And so
my mind's changed since then.
It has. Okay, well, there you go.
I'm leaning towards more Bohannon. And I'm almost curious to see if Shapen's not like fighting for some scraps here and there, just because I don't, They've already ruled Drones out. Like, he's not even in the mix whatsoever, and I know he's the youngest guy, but, I mean, Shapen's only a year older, and he's, like, firmly directly in the mix. You know what I mean? I mean, from what it appears, there's a three-headed race. He's speaking with the media just like the other two. Drones isn't.
I would be, like I've said, I would be surprised if you go out game one and he's the starter.
I'm not saying game one.
That doesn't mean he couldn't be the guy eventually. I'm just saying for this specific race, I would be very shocked if they had him pass both Gary and Jacob game one.
Right, and that's what I'm saying too. I don't think he's going to be the starter, but I think that he is going to be in the mix, like sooner rather than later, potentially. I think that he's not just going to go away without a fight, and I don't believe that just whoever they pick is going to necessarily be the dude, like you're saying. I don't think that just because Gary starts that he's starting by week 4. I don't think if Jacob starts that he's necessarily starting by week 5. It all just depends on what they do with the opportunity, but there doesn't appear to be anybody who's just clear-cut above the rest, unless they have that in mind and they've seen that, and that's just inside their little bubble that no one else has been allowed to look at so far. You know what I mean? Because we haven't seen anything, obviously. So can only go off what they're saying and kind of a mood around things. And Shapen's a very confident young man. He does have a little bit of Charlie Brewer in him. He's a better talker than Charlie, or at least a little bit more outgoing. Maybe a little slightly bigger, maybe, like height-wise, but stronger arm, we know that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know too much else, exactly where to peg him. But yeah, it looks like a 1A, 1B, and then he's a B, in that mix, just a flat B, probably number 3 guy, and, will remain in the mix. But there's something about him that I think that, I wouldn't be surprised to see him at some point. But, we will see, obviously. But yeah, the quarterback battle remains up in the air, and we'll see how long it takes to figure that one out.
Yeah, so that was definitely of note because it was reiterated, something that we'd heard at Big 12 Media Days from Dave Aranda, just reiterated once again. And I think that's a good thing, to kind of decide who your guy is, ride with him until you need to make a change. And so we'll see how that plays out. I think the next area that I think we need to talk about, again, is one of the most talked about positions on this Baylor roster. It's the offensive line. And it sure seems like, based on what we heard over the past week, that there are some encouraging signs. And I think that Dave Aranda seems to be happy with some of the progress that they've made. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have a ton more progress, but I would say that I think they're seeing some flashes from that group that maybe were missing a year ago.
Yeah, Zay Newman apparently has been a good leader. Yeah, the talk in general has been positive about them. I don't know too much of the details of who's where and doing what and all of that. But, yeah, I will say that, from the players that we've talked to, there has been more of a positive tone in regards to the offensive line. I like that, but I'm also going to wait and see it and before I believe anything about it because, I'm not going to put any faith in this offensive line until they actually show me a reason to have some faith. I mean, we've been doing this game for, years now, it feels like. But really, it's been about 2.5 years since they had an offensive line that was worth discussing in any positive fashion, quite frankly. So I'm loving what I'm hearing, but I'm also cautiously optimistic because – to them, mass improvement could still be a middle-of-the-road, average at best offensive line. I don't think that'll be the case, but I also know that we've heard things in fall practices. And not that these guys are, feeling forced to have to fib on anything, but, how, coach speak and stuff like that. And we're not getting a lot of that, so I don't want to make it sound like they're trying to portray something that's not there. But it's just having heard that from other people previously and seeing what that offensive line looked like and the last impression that it left me, I am going to be, like I said, cautiously optimistic about how much better they actually are. But I do expect them to be better, if not a lot better than last year.
Yeah, and even if it's not total coach speak, I think, what are they going to say? Oh, they stink? You know, they're not going to do that. Or, oh, they're
Franklin basically did yesterday.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. That's
he basically said they left each other out to dry last year, and they didn't really, play team ball. And I mean, I'm putting more words in his mouth, but that was basically what he was getting at.
Well, last year, he's not saying this year, though.
No.
Yeah, I'm just saying the coaches aren't going to say right now they stink. Like, they're not going to do that. I think we'll get probably more insight when we hear from Eric Mateos, or the offensive line group is actually what I mean. I know we're not going to hear from the coaches. Assistants, but getting to hear from Connor Galvin, guys like that, we'll get to know a little bit more. But I think that in general, I'm cautiously optimistic. Like you said, I think they're going to be better than last year, which is already a step in the right direction. But how much better? Because they were terrible last year. So just being a little bit better than terrible is not good enough. They have to be at least average, and we'll see if they can get to that. But I do have some optimism that Eric Mateos will have these guys ready to go. The new scheme, I think it fits the guys they have on the roster a little bit better. And now it's just going to come down to, can the talent rise to the top? Can guys like Khalil Keith, Micah Mascua, Xavier Newman, can he change things? Grant Miller, can these guys really step up and become not just leaders off the field, not just, great teammates, but can they become true impact guys on the offensive line, especially on the interior? We're going to need to find that out. And Baylor's sure hoping so. And I think that was one area that we definitely got to hear a little bit about. I'll also say it was nice to see Squirrel Williams not in a red jersey. That's nice to see, right?
Yeah, I would like to talk to Dave Aranda and actually get some information on that because the last time we asked about Squirrel, and Dave Aranda is not big on, injury information. He's smart. I'm not as smart, but I'm smart enough to realize when he's dancing around answering a question, which he did the last couple times. I asked injury questions or had somebody ask injury questions. I'm like, no, he's going to be okay. That was not really what I asked, though. I was asking, what's the timetable? And so haven't even had the opportunity to ask him that yet. And I'm curious to hear what he has to say when we do get that opportunity. But, yeah, Squirrel's out there. And, I'm not sure what to report yet because, he was out there in the spring, which was kind of a surprise. And then, we were told, well, he's coming along and whatnot. But he was in the red jersey. And then now he's not. But, given his injury, you wouldn't think that he's available right now. So, there's some information missing that we've got to track down. And so that's what my hope is. That's like a circled question that I have for the next time we talk to Dave Aranda.
Yeah, because, there's a difference between him going out and practicing, or is he going to be ready for game one? How close is he to game ready?
Right, he practiced in the spring, not fully, but he practiced.
Right.
And so
just like Terrell Bernard.
Yeah, he was healthy enough to do that. But obviously wasn't healthy enough to play in a game. Yeah. Terrell Bernard is now healthy enough to play in a game. Squirrel doesn't have a red jersey, but we don't know at all what his status is. So I would think he'd still be on the mend based on the timetable, but I also don't know his exact timetable. So again, we have a piece of information missing that we need to figure out hopefully sometime this week.
What if they release just one of those highlight videos this weekend after they do a scrimmage and you just see Squirrel just taking off, contact and all, runs for a touchdown, and everyone's just like, oh, well, I guess he's going to be ready to play.
I actually think that would be freaking brilliant.
It would be amazing.
Yeah. They won't do that, but I think that would be brilliant to do, especially in the NIL world where, there's no fear of really highlighting a player or doing any of that. So, yeah, you might as well. That's what I would do, but is that something they could do soon, or is that something that they do more in November? Because, again, we don't know, what his status is, but he did look like he was just a full participant. So, like I said a couple times now, we'll ask when we get a chance, but definitely intrigued by seeing Squirrel out there.
Yeah, because no red jersey means full contact. And that's I find that to be crazy that he's going to get full contact after these injuries.
For all we know, he could be in that jersey, and then when we're not around, he's off to the side.
No doubt.
We're not at practice.
No doubt.
So for all we know, he just doesn't have a red jersey on. Maybe he's ramped it up a little. I would imagine he has since the spring, but that could also mean he's just in a regular jersey and he's doing hula hoop drills. So. yeah, that's a question to be answered.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the next place we can go is the defense. TJ Franklin talked for a while. He had a lot of different quotes that he kind of talked about, and it seems like every level of the defense he had some encouraging things to talk about. The defensive line coming together. He talked about Apu, his impact, the way that he can really change the game for them. I found that to be interesting, but something that we've heard for a while and got to see a little bit in the spring game. Linebackers playing well. I think that there's this growing confidence in that defense, and I think we've all had that for a while. We all know kind of the talent that they have on defense, and having another year in the system, it just seems like everyone's very comfortable and ready to have a very, very good year defensively.
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about Apu. I just want to see him now at this point. But TJ's another guy that I am very excited for. I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's, got a nice spot there at end where James Lockhart is, giving him pointers and helping coach him up. James Lockhart played that position pretty effectively a couple seasons back, now at GA. So he's been helping out TJ. TJ's just got a great work ethic and personality as it is. And, he's been around a while now. It's been a couple years on campus. So he's pegged for a starting role right next to Ika or next to Apu. And, I think that should free some things up for him as well. So I'm expecting TJ Franklin to have a big year. And, the defense at this point, it's just obvious. They expect to be great. And why not? They're replacing basically nobody. They replaced William Bradley King, but I'm not so sure they're not going to have an upgrade there just based on everybody that will be on display and available and in tune and coached up and just different from the settings of last year. So I don't even look at that as like some major loss because he was okay, but he wasn't like the superstar transfer that people were expecting when he first arrived.
I think you're right. He didn't even get – I would say that if William Bradley King was back this year, he would be an upgrade. If that makes sense. Yeah. Because everyone just didn't really know what they were doing defensively. It was all kind of mix and match, and William Bradley King was basically just a pass rusher.
Right. So, if he was here this year, he'd have like a more carved out role. He would be used a more specific way because he would be freed up to be used a more specific way because of the talent they have. But yeah, he was just kind of he wasn't a square peg in a round hole, but he wasn't far off from that either last year. Again, he flashed a few times, and that was great, but I really don't feel like we got anywhere near our money's worth for what the expectations were, and maybe that's the media and the fans' fault, but I don't think so. His coach, Blake Anderson at Arkansas State, wasn't happy to see him go because I remember interviewing him right after the fact, and he was a really, really good player at Arkansas State. Sitting the beat up on WBK hour. He obviously got to the NFL for a reason and was a good player. It's just that he wasn't a star. He wasn't an all Big 12 guy. He wasn't we got a game plan for him type of a guy. And he wasn't even somebody that on a weekly basis we really thought of in our heads of he's going to be a game changer in this game. You know what I mean? I don't know. He just kind of blended in with the rest of that defense and they were just pretty solid as a whole. But yeah, if he were back this year, then, oh, my gosh, they would be just so loaded. But even without him, I feel like overall they have certainly upgraded this unit, and there's a lot of confidence. And, it's just kind of the beat goes on. Nothing really changes for them. Coach is the same. Position coaches are the same except for Kevin Curtis. So they're in a good spot. They're just kind of settled in and gearing up at this point.
Yeah, and I pretty much agree with that. I think you're going to have a more experienced Ashton Logan, a more experienced Garmin Randolph who could take that step to replacing William Bradley King. I think they're going to be absolutely fantastic defensively. I will say this, though. I think if the whole defense is healthy, so if everyone's healthy, ready to go, you know what you're getting from Apu, you know what you're getting from Bernard and Petrie and Tejada, I think that I could probably go out on a limb and say that I think TJ Franklin might be their most important defensive player outside of the superstars. I really think that there's a scenario where I think that could be true. I just think it's so important to have another guy up front with Apu who can actually get pressure at his size, who can stop the run, who can make big, impactful plays. on that front group, I just think it's so important. And I think if you take away the superstars and you just think about the guys who, your Kalen Barnes, your JT Woods, your Christian Morgan, Gabe Hall, I think that there's a scenario where I think TJ Franklin might be the most important secondary guy on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, very well could be. You got to eliminate like 4 guys immediately. So, yeah, like one of the remaining 6 or 7, I'd say so. I mean, who else are you really going to put in that spot? Cheaty? I'm not going to put him there. Gabe Hall? I mean, please.
Kalen Barnes.
Look, Gabe Hall, all due respect, I expect him to have a good year, but he's got to show me something for me to talk about him anymore. Like, I mean, I've said his name 500 times, and 499 times has been because of potential.
Yep. I know. Yeah, it's been that case.
So, again, nothing personal, but like, you know what? Show me. Yeah. I'll say your name all the time if you show me a reason to, but yeah, I got to break myself of the habit of just remembering guys as recruits and expecting that to translate. And so far it hasn't for Gabe Hall. Injuries have been an issue. Last year's COVID year, he's kind of in and out. So, I mean, to your point, Franklin missed a couple of games, but that was it. He started the 7 that he was able to play in. He had a big jump in stats. I mean, he played as a true freshman on the Sugar Bowl team. Now, granted, probably some of that was like, hey, we're going to have to use him early on, but also because he was talented enough to play a little bit, and he was big enough as a true freshman early enrollee on the D-line to be able to at least get in there and mix it up a little. So I think Franklin's already kind of surpassed his rating in my mind. He was like a 3-star guy. I think that he surpassed that last year in terms of, kind of overplaying that star rating, in my opinion, but showed potential to really outplay that rating. Be an impactful defender for this team. I think Siaki's going to, obviously open up a lot for him. He's going to push a lot his way. He's going to force guys into TJ, so
he's going to eat up double teams.
Yeah.
So TJ is going to have one-on-one situations.
Yeah. And he's a big dude. He's a strong dude. He's not the biggest, but he's capable. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely have TJ Franklin pegged as one of my guys that I see taking a big jump forward this year and improving.
Yeah, and those were some of the main notes that I think we got from this week. Again, I think overall there's got to be a lot of excitement from fans about the opening to fall camp. I think there's a lot of positive signs. Quarterback battle still up in the air. The offensive line still a lot to address. These things have been mentioned, but the good news is the defensive line is not overrated. Dave Aranda's mindset, not overrated. We've gotten to see all that. These coaches, they're ready to go. There's an excitement level. And all signs currently are pointing towards a very happy and excited roster, which a lot of times leads to very successful seasons.
Yeah, it's just the start of the grind, really. So, we will see there is that buzz that everybody has right now. Like, oh, man, we're all perfect records, and this year is going to be the year, and our recruits are going to, be the key to solving everything, or that assistant coach we hired is going to be the one missing piece. Everybody's got that thought in their head right now for the most part. But I think, in Baylor's case, it's genuine. If I saw a bunch of fluff and I saw a bunch of guys forcing answers, I mean, last year was just so weird, and in hindsight, I mean, we all kind of could tell that, like, just things aren't completely normal. But, what are you going to say at the time? Because nothing was normal for anybody. So it's like, of course it's not normal. They had a weird coaching staff they just met, hardly know. They haven't even been around each other. Like, all that stuff was just so strange. So when you got some awkwardness, maybe in the course of an answer or just vibe or whatever, it made sense because, like, the whole thing's awkward. The whole season was awkward. But, at the same time, if they had come back this spring and then even this fall and they were kind of acting the same way, then my BS detector would have gone off in a major way. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they made so many changes, and those changes, and we've actually gotten to see those guys and meet those guys and talk to those guys and then see the players' reactions to those guys, you can tell, like, okay, no, there really is something here. And then you absorb all that from the spring and just listening to players and just picking up on their body language compared to last year when we get a little glimpse here and there, or compared to spring when we got full glimpses. There's a definite confidence there. It's not forced. It's not, because of what they've been, told to memorize in meetings. It's not any of that. It's all legit. It's natural. And it's a lot of work by Dave Aranda, that's for sure, because as much as people want to probably hear him talk football and not so much always the personal side of things, he falls back on that or goes to that because I think that's been such an important thing for this football team. As much as we want to hear about the linebacker or the starting quarterback, that behind-the-scenes chemistry was obviously missing last year. It was missing within the coaching staff itself. We know that for a fact. And so now hopefully all those things have been cleaned up, and it's just purely about relationships and getting to know each other, and then, playing some football, and that seems to be where they are, and they seem to be in a good place right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Good start to fall camp.
Sure.
I
mean, quarterbacks, no idea who the starter is, but probably Gary or Jacob. But again, I'll say that I wouldn't be surprised to see Shapen play at some point this year. I mean, all of it, though, will depend upon what those other guys do. I mean, if he plays, it's their fault he plays. Not so much he plays because he grabbed the bull by the horns and forced himself into the situation. That'd be great too. But I think it'd more likely come as a result of Jacob gets in there and Gary gets in there and they're both just okay or not good. Then I could see, what are your other options? You're gonna have to figure out who the quarterback is. So wouldn't surprise me, but hopefully it doesn't happen because hopefully one of those two guys gets in there and actually, commands the damn team and takes over. And so that's something that we really haven't kind of seen that attitude just yet from any of the three. They're all just friendly and it's cool, and that's what you'd expect because they are friends. But, somebody does need to jump up and just say, no, this is my team. Give me those keys. I'm getting in the driver's seat and I'm driving this thing.
Yeah, you're right.
And they don't have that yet.
And someone needs to not just have that mindset, but also go do it on the field.
Yeah,
just go
absolutely.
smash the competition, make this not even a competition by the end of things. And that's what you're hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very tough for that to happen because I do think that, they're very talented players and that makes it all the most interesting. And the funniest part is, the most talented one possibly isn't even in the running right now. He's a true freshman. He might be the most talented. We don't know that for sure yet.
Most talented might not even be on scholarship.
That could be true. Could be, yeah. Or a 2022 recruit.
Yeah,
that's another possibility. So, we'll see what happens. I do think that both Jacob and Gary are very, very talented. I think it's going to be a tight race down to the finish. And it's just really going to be a matter of who fits this scheme the best and who can go out there and operate within Jeff Grimes' structure the best. And that's probably going to be the guy that wins the job.
Yeah, I just, I was glad to hear Aranda say what he did about the not rotating or preferring not to because nobody wants to see that. We and Baylor fans saw that 3 years ago, and it was not fun with Charlie and Jalen McClendon, and before that, Anu Solomon and Charlie. Zach Smith. Yeah, they did that for 2 years, and that wasn't real productive in the long run. I mean, that, that just was – you just want a guy. You want a guy. And Aranda wants a guy. Fans want a guy. And so we'll see if a guy emerges from one of those three. But elsewhere on offense, the O-line, I can't really, go gush on them. But I do definitely pick up on all the positive talk about them. They've clearly been working really hard. And there was also clearly last season just some shenanigans, and they seem to have rooted that out and have changed that. And I don't know how much of that is Mateos or just the players themselves, probably a bit of both, but they do seem to be on a better trajectory. The skill guys, I'm not really worried about any of that stuff. I feel good about pretty much all the skill positions. Tight ends we'll talk to today and get more on them. Haven't heard, much about them, but I imagine we will this afternoon. And then, the defense just, looking good and not many questions to answer, really, just, getting better every day. So things are moving along.
Yeah, just another quick note. Drew Estrada, good to see him back at practice. He obviously missed a large portion of spring ball, and he looks good. By
design.
Yeah, absolutely. He just looks like a guy who I do think will make an impact this year, as expected. Mm-hmm. He's a transfer. He didn't come in to sit. He came in to make an impact. I know Josh Fleeks is going to push him. I know they have talent. Gavin Holmes, I know there's talent, but I just think Drew Estrada has an opportunity to have a very solid year and be a very impactful guy in this wide receiver group.
Well, they better have some receivers that can play this year because Lord knows the room's deep enough at this point. and Lord knows they have enough veterans. So if they can't find like 3-4 good receivers out of this batch of guys, then shut the whole program down, because, I mean, there's no reason why they can't. And Estrada is interesting because not only is he, apparently a pretty good player who they're clearly high on and who they were careful with in the spring, and that's why they just kind of let him rest up and didn't try to, force him playing through injuries in spring ball for what at his age. So they kind of let him work his way back and saved him up for this time right now. But the thing about him is that, yeah, he's pushing somebody out of the starting lineup. He's pushing somebody out of playing time. And so that's a position that's really of interest to me, because you do have your Josh Fleekses and your guys like that. And where do they, like, who gets reps? Because there's a lot of guys right now. And there's only so many balls to go around. And we know they're going to run the ball a lot as well. So I'm thinking that, that competition, just the numbers and the fact that there's, only one football to go around, hopefully pushes that group to really, safe to say, exceeding last year's results. I mean, that should be a no-brainer, but hopefully they have a huge year because I think they can with the new offense and, a quarterback with a good arm, because that'll be whoever they pick will have a pretty good arm. So, yeah, I'm excited about the receivers group. I just don't know who to expect to see ultimately outside of the, Tyquans, RJs, and Drew Estradas. But, like, where else do guys get playing time, and where do they get that playing time, and all that I'm very intrigued to hear and see more about. Tight ends we haven't heard much from. Again, that'll be later today. Defense is solid. Special teams, nothing to really mention at all. I haven't seen any of that because we haven't been at practice, and maybe that'll be something we get a little bit more on as the practices roll along here over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, nothing really to report on special teams other than Ebner says he plans on returning some kicks or punts here and there as well. I don't think he'll be necessarily the full-time guy all the time, but he'll be in the mix. So
that could be another Estrada impact.
Yeah, Estrada will definitely be in there. Fleeks will be in there. Probably a couple other guys as well. Yep. So that's kind of fall camp for right now. It's been 4 practices. We'll have a 5th tonight. And, of course, a lot of articles and stuff coming up as well. Elsewhere, Baylor basketball. Actually, let's touch on the Baylor football, the one other note first. There was one negative to Baylor football this week, and that was Caleb Douglas, the wide receiver commit, announced that he was decommitting from Baylor. So, Grayson, what's the what on Caleb Douglas and this? I mean, I don't know, maybe the tea leaves were saying this was going to happen. I wasn't really paying attention. I just randomly saw his tweet, and I was like, that's strange with all the momentum they've had lately. So what's the deal with Caleb Douglas?
Yeah, so I would say that reading the tea leaves, I didn't expect this to happen either, and it was so short after he had originally committed.
I was going to say, it wasn't that long ago.
Wasn't long-lived, didn't even last 2 months. So, I think this was a decision that was mainly kind of about a few things. So first of all, he only took 2 official visits. So he's got 3 more left. I think he'll probably use those now that he decommitted from Baylor. I think he's getting more interest from other schools, which obviously that's very hit or miss. We saw it with Cedric Roberts. He didn't get hardly any offers when he decommitted from Baylor until obviously the big Oklahoma one. But it took some time. So Caleb Douglas, I do think he's hearing from other schools. I think that he wants to go on official visits. I think he wants to see what these other schools have to offer. I know USC has been one that's been kind of pushing hard for him a little bit. They've already offered. I think that's kind of what this is all about. I don't think it's about Baylor specifically. I think it's just about his recruitment in general. He just wants to kind of examine all options. But it is a very interesting one because he was very locked into the Bears when he gave his commitment, loved what they were doing, loved Chauncey Stuckey. But obviously, things change in recruiting and it changes every single day. And so that's kind of the latest on what's going on with him. Now, for Baylor purposes, this does mean that guys like DJ Allen and Jaden Gibson are more priorities now. And they're guys who I do think the staff are really going to look at to try to land and try to fill the void that Caleb Douglas has left. I think they're also going to evaluate other receivers in the state and try to figure out if there's another guy that's worth offering throughout the season, and maybe that guy ends up being the replacement for Caleb Douglas. But again, wide receiver, they will want to take one more now that he's gone because all they have is Jordan Neighbors currently. So yeah, they'll be looking to add another wide receiver with his decommitment.
All right, on recruiting, but in basketball, Keontae George, 5-star guard, committed to Scott Drew and Baylor basketball a couple days back. Obviously, a big pickup for the defending national champs. Keontae was on the show with us yesterday and had a lot of good things to say about his recruitment and Baylor and why the Bears. And obviously, he's a young man who had pretty much anybody that he wanted to go to choose from. Arizona, Arkansas, California, Florida, Kansas, Kentucky, LSU. Anybody. Name them. He got an offer from them probably. All the big dogs around the Southwest, like every team in the Big 12 and A&M and, all that. But just a stud. He commits 2 days ago. And, he was a fun guy to talk to and obviously a very good player, so a big-time commit for Scott Drew and company.
Yeah, and he chose Baylor over Kansas, Kentucky, Oklahoma State, and Texas. That was his final 5, along with Baylor, obviously, in there. This is huge. This is the biggest commitment, according to all the metrics, the composite ranking, since Isaiah Austin. Isaiah Austin is the number 1 recruit Baylor's ever landed. But I think Keontae George is going to be fantastic. This guy can score the basketball really effectively, has great range from the three-point line, does a great job at getting to the rim as well. I know a lot of people have talked about how his athleticism really changed over the last year and a half, I would say. And that's really allowed him to take this jump to the next level. He's right around 6'5", which is great size for a guard. I think he might be a little bit taller than that as well. I know he mentioned a 6'6" wingspan, I believe, when he was talking to you guys as well. So he is fantastic. This is an NBA prospect. This is a guy who's gotten comparisons to, impact-wise as like a Jalen Suggs for Gonzaga. And when you have that kind of comparison impact-wise, not saying they're the same player, that's big. He's the number 2 player in the nation composite-wise. So, I can't really emphasize this enough. He's a guy who's going to be able to score in college very, very well and efficiently, but he's also going to be a very good team player, I think, too. I think he's going to be able to play great defense. He's even as a freshman, which usually does not happen. And he's a competitor. I think he fits really well with what they're trying to do with their guard position. And I can't really say enough. This is a really, really good player and one that Baylor fans should get very excited about. I'll also say he helps with the recruitment of Anthony Black, the 5-star guard out of Coppell. Obviously, he's got Baylor roots as well.
His best friend.
Yep. Yeah, really, really close with him. And then obviously Vence, Big Vence. I can't even say his last name, but he's a big in the class that they're trying to land, Iwuchukwu, and they've been after him for a long time as well. He's a borderline 5-star guy too. So if you land those 3 along with Dylan Hunter, who's already committed to the 2022 class, you're loaded once again. And Scott Drew, what more can you say? This is a huge pickup. I will say, though, there are concerns with him potentially going pro. I've heard a lot of smoke with that, and you can bet they're not going to stop going after him, even though he's committed to Baylor. So there's a chance that happens, but I think right now he's pretty locked in with being a Baylor Bear, and right now I would say I think he'll sign, and if he does, man, oh man, they're going to be really, really good again. They're going to be good this year, but next year they're going to be really good again.
Yeah, it's a massive commit, and, all due respect to Isaiah Austin, he was a big, gangly, goofy, tall, just skinny potential guy, as much as anything. He obviously had talent, and then you add the frame, and you're like, okay, this is why he makes sense as a 5-star. But, obviously the health issues came into play and never quite reached that status. But I think there's a real chance that George could. Based on his talent level, the people that were after him, and needs at guard. I think that he's definitely not just a big 5-star get, but could be a 5-star player in pretty short order and be pretty impactful for however long he's around. So yeah, just get him to campus and figure it all out from there. But certainly excited to see him get some coaching from this staff and put on the green and gold.
He's so good. And he fits. He just fits so well. And I think he's a much safer bet than Isaiah Austin was, which, like you kind of alluded to. And I'll say this, watching Jared Butler and Davion Mitchell play, I think, recruits are really noticing that. The way, and Maceo Teague as well, the way that they were able to isolate their guards through the pick and roll or just one-on-one game, I think is really intriguing to high school recruits. And it's just another one of those things where Scott Drew's figured it all out. And I think Keontae George is probably a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. That's somewhat a bold statement, but I think that he's got that kind of ability, and I do think he'll be a one and done. I think he's that good.
Well, we'll see. Just get him on that one first before he goes pro. Get that 1 year in, and if he's good enough to do that, then I don't think too many people would be upset. They'd just be happy with what he was able to do in that 1 year. But yeah, massive commit. They got a 5-star in Kendall Brown last year, so kind of a trend starting at this point for Scott Drew and company, where they're starting to kind of stack these high-profile recruits now, which is exactly what you'd want to see and what you want them to be doing. So big-time verbal commit. Got to finish and seal the deal here ultimately. But, obviously they just grabbed it, and it looks good. And you hope that he's around for a year or more. So awesome job there by Baylor basketball, and big news, obviously, this week. So outside of that, let's get into the mailbag. And there's a lot of questions this week. If we don't get to them based on time, then we'll save them for next week. But that's just a rule we're going to have to live by. We don't have a set cutoff, but we're not going to go like 2 hours because we got things to do and we don't have time. But we will try to get as many in as we possibly can. But just know for future reference, if you don't get your mailbag question answered this week, kind of look at the clock and where we are, and you'll say, okay, they probably ran out of time. But just know that we will hang on to it and circle back around to it when we have a little bit more time. So we'll see how many we can get to. Brown Bear, I'm intrigued by C.J. Rogers. What are the odds he's the best quarterback on the roster a year from now?
I think C.J. Rogers is a very good quarterback. He had a lot of potential, looked great at Argyle, but he will not be the best quarterback on the roster a year from now. I think that would be pretty crazy. If he is, wow, heck of an achievement by him, but I find that highly unlikely. I do think it will take him time to really develop into the quarterback that I do think he can be. I think he's definitely a Power 5 guy, but I think it'll take some time. I think there is some rawness to his game, but I love the talent, and I think eventually there's a chance he'll compete for the job, but it won't be next year.
I've heard his name as a sleeper guy to look out for, not right now, but in the future. There is evident talent there, and the coaches seem to be pretty high on, kind of a diamond in the rough type of guy, probably a guy that should not have been a walk-on at Baylor and should have been a Division I signee somewhere else. But that was the way it worked out. Kudos to their staff for being able to get a walk-on like C.J. Rogers. But, yeah, I'm not expecting him to have an impact in a year. That's just kind of quick for me when you've already had 3-4 guys who've been on campus for a couple years minimum. But would I rule out him being like a starter one day or playing a bunch of games for Baylor one day? Absolutely not. I just don't know if it'll come as quickly as 1 year in. But he's definitely a name to remember and definitely one that the staff likes. So, we'll see how it pans out for him. But nice to have him in the mix, that's for sure. Doc Corral, there's been some comments from players and insiders on premium side. If you don't have premium, try it out for only $1. That's right. That feel kind of 2019 preseason-ish to me with the confidence. What's the feeling in the program, and how does it compare to 2019?
I think we've kind of mentioned this a little bit, but I do think the program, it feels like they are very excited, very confident in what they could be this season. And it's similar to 2019, but not quite the same. I wouldn't say that it's exactly the same. I think the excitement might be more, but I don't know that the confidence is quite where it was in 2019. That 2019 felt like they felt like they were going to win the Big 12 that year. I'm not sure that I'm getting that sense from this year's team. I believe that they think they're going to be good, but I don't know if they think they're going to be, national championship contenders like 2019 was. I don't know if I'm getting that kind of quiet confidence.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's definite confidence, definitely a belief that they can win some football games, but, not necessarily adamant about it, or I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they didn't win 7 games last year, so that's what that other team had. They had just won 7 games after winning 2 years prior, or the year prior to that. So they had a reason to come in and just be full of, just excitement and all that, because, hey, we went from 1 to 7. Now we got everybody back. Just imagine what we're going to do. And that was kind of the feeling there. This is coming off of 2 and 7, and they haven't done anything yet to prove the turnaround is anything other than just, some hires and some recruits and some feeling good because you know each other better. That's all they really have to base it off of right now. And then, of course, what they see in the field. So, yeah, I'd say the confidence is a little bit different. More matter of fact with some proof behind it in 2018 or 2019, but it's definitely good. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a great thing. It's been good to see, and it's definitely, I think, going to be helpful this season. Rules practices were about intensity and physicality. Browse was conditioning and speed, never stopping movement. What would you say is Aranda's practice focus?
I think intensity is definitely one of them. I think they definitely practice very hard. There's no doubt about that. He wants to push them. But I also think it's very much about competitiveness. I think that's something that Dave Aranda has been kind of preaching a little bit, that they want to compete in everything they do. Rule preach that as well, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'd say intensity, competitiveness, and then also focus. Focus is the word used, but I think focus on the details. I think those are the 3 things that I would say are really becoming major priorities to Dave Aranda in the practices.
The Hound followed up and basically asked like the same question, almost word for word. So hopefully that answers your questions as well, Hound, because I mean, it's basically the same question about the differences in the practices. So, 2 for 1 there. Joe Bear, do you think Keontae George will be a one-and-done player? Is there a chance he sticks around for at least 2 seasons?
I would be shocked if he stayed for 2 seasons, something went terribly wrong. Like he got hurt or something like that, because I think he's going to come in and average probably like 15 points a game as a true freshman. And I would say the likelihood of him staying is as likely as a guy like Jalen Suggs staying for more than 1 year.
Well, I'll say this. Just get him on the first season first.
Yep.
I mean, that to me, that's what I'm going to say every time he gets brought up or anything about the NBA or any of that. Get him on campus first. Let's see him play a year, and then let's go from there. But yeah, I mean, I understand why you asked the question. I'm not knocking that at all. How many Final Four appearances for men's basketball in the next 5 years?
I'll go with 2.
All right, I'll go with 1. I mean, it's hard to project Final Fours, but I'll go with 1. How many more national title appearances in the next 10 years?
2. How about 1?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with 1 probably.
1 or 2, something along there.
Next 10, maybe I'll go 2, but I mean, even then, dude, I mean, it sounds so easy to say coming off a national title once you've done it, but like, man, it's still so hard to do. But I'll go, 1 on the next Final Four in the next 5 years, and I'll go 1 on a national title appearance in the next 10. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that. It seems Scott Drew, and I'm tempted to go 2 on the 10-year thing, but still, getting to a national title game, that's tough stuff. Seems Scott Drew is taking his recruiting to the next level. Major snowball of success seems to be rolling. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like men's basketball is now playing and recruiting at a blue blood level. Appreciate you both, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, they definitely are, but that doesn't mean they are a blue blood. Just to clarify, they are recruiting and playing like one right now, but they aren't a blue blood. You got to earn that over time, and maybe in the next 5-10 years, maybe they can get to that point. But they're recruiting like one, no doubt about it, and they played like one this past year.
Yeah,
the past 2 years.
Who cares about being called one if you got all the intangibles of a blue blood? So, I mean, they could have a blue blood and everything but name just because, they're not, from the right family or something like that. But they'll still get all the benefits, and that's what's happening right now. So, blue blood or not, they're acting like one. Coach to broker, bring back Squirrel question. Seriously, how's he progressing or expecting to have a 3-headed backfield of Ebner, Smith, and Squirrel? No idea. As I said earlier in the show, we got to get an update from Aranda, and we haven't had one in a long time.
I think he'll play at some point this year, so you will have the 3-headed backfield, but I don't know when that's going to be. Like you said, Craig, we don't know yet.
And do you, again, do the same thing where you bring him back, late in the season, and all of a sudden he's playing Iowa State again? It all depends to me on, man, it's in like all these eligibility things, and it's just weird, like the way they gunked this up because of COVID. But like, I need to find out when he's actually going to be healthy, because if it's not until November, then count me out on saying anything about him this year, and really count me out on even wanting to see him this year if it's going to be that late in the season. But yeah, we don't know yet, so hopefully, like by next week, we can have more of a clarifying answer for you on Squirrel. But as of right now, haven't had that opportunity. But he's out there. Yankee Bear, how helpful is it to our offense to go up against our defense during practice? Aside from the talent, does our particular defensive scheme help our offense prepare for specific opponent schemes in the league?
I mean, it's very helpful to go up against a really good defense every day. There's no doubt about that. And they're getting different looks. And I think that's the key, is that the defense can manipulate the looks based on what the offense is trying to run, which I'm sure the offensive coaches want them to do. Show them ways that a defense takes away the first two options. Can the quarterback find the third option? Can you go through your reads? So yeah, it's very, very helpful for sure. Now, as far as schematically, does it help them prepare for other teams in the league? A little bit. Iowa State is one that runs a 3-man front. So they're kind of the one of note. There's a few other teams that are starting to trend that way. I don't know what Texas is going to run this year. They ran it last year at times. West Virginia at times, they still run a 4-man front a lot. But so it does help some.
All right. 4 days into fall camp, guess the starting offensive lineup.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Full offensive lineup, I guess, is what we're going with here. So, okay.
Don't ask me any too deep questions. I'm not going to get that into the weeds any podcast. So,
okay, you want to just go through it together. So, quarterback, Jacob Zeno.
I'll go Bohannon.
Okay. Outside wide receiver, Tyquan Thornton, RJ Sneed.
Yeah, those
Drew
are obvious.
Estrada.
Yeah.
Is that your three? Tight end, Ben Sims.
Yep.
Okay, now the fun. You ready for the fun part? Left tackle, Connor Galvin.
Yep.
Left guard, oh my gosh. I'll go with Khalil Keith.
Is this which one is homeboy from Vanderbilt playing? Is
That's
he right guard?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go Khalil Keith, but Micah Maskua starting by the end of the year.
Okay. Center, Jacob Gall.
Yep.
Right guard, Grant Miller. Right tackle, I think that eventually Gavin Byers is going to be the guy, but game one it might be Casey Phillips.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of expecting too. Yep. I think the offensive line could probably change pretty good over the course of the year.
Yeah.
Outside of probably Galvin, and then center outside of Gall. Hopefully you don't have to mess around with Gall. Xavier Newman's kind of intriguing in one of those guard spots just because you've been hearing some good things about him. But no, I'll go with that. I'll go Phillips and Galvin as the tackles to at least start off with. Miller and who did we say was the other guard?
Byers, but Phillips probably the starter, I guess.
Or no, Byers and Miller as guards, and then Gall at center. Yeah, that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I just think for Newman, I truthfully, I have to see it before I start projecting
and I don't want to see him at center anymore ever again. No. I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So
defense, defense should be obvious. Defense, I don't even think we need to
No,
do
it was just offense.
Okay.
Okay.
Offense, yeah. My bad. But yeah, I was going to say on defense, that should be you can go ahead and memorize that one. That's going to be what it is right now and what it's going to be, hopefully the entire season, that defensive lineup. All right. Also from Yankee, do you know what percentage of the team has been vaccinated? No. What protocols are required to be followed as a team and as individuals for those who are not vaccinated? I don't know. I guess wearing your mask and getting tested on a regular basis. The NCAA issued their thing for what the expectations are or whatever. So it's going to be just, if you're unvaccinated, it's going to be like last year. All the stuff you had to do last year, you're going to have to do this year. And I'm not sure about the vaxxed players, but Aranda did not give a percentage, just said that they were getting closer to what they wanted.
Yeah, I will say that Aranda, percentage-wise, did mention that they were getting much closer with their vaccination.
But he gave no number.
No number, but just mentioned that they're where they want to be. So that's good.
That's best we can tell at this point. What it's going to be, if you are unvaxxed, you're still doing all the things unvaxxed people were doing before, basically. What do you think about the idea of striking an NIL deal with Khalil Keith, giving him unlimited light bulbs that work in exchange for an interview?
I mean, that's a funny idea, but
I don't get it.
You're waiting on his light bulb to click.
I kind of thought that was probably what it was about, but I didn't quite get it.
You strike an NIL deal giving him light bulbs.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm slow. My bad. But what do I think about it? Whatever works. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that would actually be allowed. But
if it clicks for him, it would be massive for this. Let's just say that he's had so long to really.
Yeah, it's not a repeat from the 2019 podcast and the 2020 podcast
every year.
Yeah, this is the 2021 podcast, but still, hopefully that light bulb goes off.
It's like Gabe Hall. We talk about Khalil Keith so much. Yeah. Just like he could be that guy. He could be so talented, just not there yet. So, we'll see if he gets there by the time the season starts.
Yep, hopefully. Bear Love, will the quarterback battle continue during the first game? 2 quarterbacks get time. Will a starter be named by the first game? That guy's a starter the entire season. Well, I'd say that they don't want to do that. Aranda just said he didn't want to do that. I would assume they don't do that. But I don't think that just because a guy starts, he's going to be the starter, barring injury, all year long. I just said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised to see Blake Shapen get some action at some point or another. I think definitely we'll see both Jacob and Gary at various points. So, no, I don't think that the guy who starts is just going to be the starter.
Yeah, so I would agree that I do think we've heard that they're going to name the starter. He talked about it. He said it multiple times that they want to name a starter by the time that game starts, probably before that game against Texas State. But I'm with you. Even if a guy's named, that does not guarantee he'll be the starter for the whole year. I think there's a lot to work through before Baylor has a solidified quarterback. We saw how long it took Charlie Brewer to get to that point. It could be the same for these guys if they don't go out and play well.
Yep, so we'll see. Hopefully the guy gets the job, and he is the guy all year long. I'm just not confident enough in any of them right now to say that I'd expect that at this point. All right, I'm setting 7 minutes. We got 7 minutes left to run through the rest of these. Grizz if I set the over-under for the average number of teams the selection committee takes from the SEC in a 12-team playoff at 6, would you take the over or the under?
Under.
Yeah, I'd take the under too. And they won't have to do that because once they have their own super conference, they'll have like 15 of the 16 teams. But yeah, I'd still say under, although
they would have had 4 last year to put in perspective. So
yeah, it's a lot harder than you probably think it is to have 6. But I get it though. PB Pope, Colt mentioned tough conversations with Khalil Keith. Can you elaborate on that at all? Is it a motivation issue with Keith? How do y'all think he's responding to those conversations?
He's got to focus every single day. It's a focus and consistency thing with Khalil Keith. It's been that way since he was here with Matt Rule. It's just that's how it has been for the longest time. And so tough conversations, he just has to get himself mentally prepared every single day because physically he's got all the talent. He can be a dominant guy in the Big 12, a dominant guard for this team. He's got, again, consistency and focus every single day.
Yeah, that mental game is the toughest one, right? I mean, the physical one's the one that hurts immediately and all that, but the mental one's the one that if you get into a bad rut, you can just live in that rut. And, I mean, for him to be having the same issue when it's all self-driven for like 3 years, I mean, that's a problem. Yeah. That is when somebody tells you, like, here is the key to success, you can grab it out of my hand. I can show you the door to go unlock and walk through. This is all you have to do. And 3 years go by and you still can't do that? Like, hello? I mean, what else can anybody say? I mean, ultimately, it's the individual has to, like, let it sink in and realize what's at stake. And, if they can't do that, then it's just a shame. But, yeah, I mean, I think they're all just telling him, like, hey, dude, look, you got all the potential in the world. Like, just come on. So hopefully that registers. And the thing is like, he doesn't have unlimited years of football left. So if this is what he wants and this is what he loves, and I hope that it is, then, this is the year you got to do something, man. You got to prove it out there. So, nothing but positive, productive conversations, but still a little motivation, I'm sure, thrown in there. Bare minimum, how will the rise in COVID affect the season and game day experience? I have no idea. Any chance attendance ends up getting limited again? I have no idea. Last year had a lot of similarities to 2017, albeit for completely different reasons. Does 2021 look more like 2018 or 19?
Shoo, that's tough.
I honestly have no idea on the COVID stuff. Like I don't have any insight on that right now. And the only people to ask those questions that will know are Baylor Athletics. And I don't think they're in a rush to make a commitment to one or the other 3 weeks out from the first game.
Yeah, definitely not.
That'll be like the week of the game. You'll hear about if you need a mask and all that kind of stuff, I would think.
Right, yeah, that's how I view it as well. As far as, oh man, that's such a good question. Comparing it to one season, I actually think this is a cop-out. So I guess I'll go with 2018, but I do think it'll fall somewhere in between 2018 and 2019 is kind of where I'm viewing it. I think that, regular season-wise, they'll win more than 6 games, but I don't think they'll win 11 games in the regular season. So somewhere in between there. Yeah,
I think somewhere in between is, like I said, my biggest mark for them, 7 wins with a bowl game. That's my mark for them this year. It's like my expectations.
So 7 wins, including
like
the bowl
6-6 in the regular season, and or 7-5, and then losing or winning the bowl game.
So you do think it'll be pretty much?
I just think it's going to total 7. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm probably more in line with like 8 if you're counting a bowl game. So more like my expectations are 7-5 or 8-4. Mm-hmm. So kind of the higher end. But yeah, again, it's somewhere in between.
I'm going. Yeah. I'm like I think I'll max out at them going 7-5 in the regular season, but that just means I think they'll lose their bowl game. So I don't think that they have to be okay. So 8-5 or what? I'm looking at like 7 wins, just ultimately maybe 8 with a great year, but I'm leaning far more and sticking on 7, just overall, including a bowl game. However that happens. All right, Scotty B, and bare minimum, again, stay tuned to Baylor Athletics, like probably in a couple weeks, I'm sure, and I'm sure Mac will say on our show what all that jazz will be with COVID and everything, but I have no idea. Scotty B, the Baylor King, thoughts on the Baylor women's soccer exhibition games against A&M Corpus Christi, Thursday in Waco, and preseason number 9, A&M on Sunday at College Station. I appreciate it and sick 'em.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of thoughts on it other than it's going to be great to see them get challenged by A&M like that. Preseason number 9 in the country, a great opportunity for them to show exactly who they're going to be this season and really get to go up against a really good team and kind of give them a measuring stick for, themselves early on. Corpus, they should be able to win that one. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time. Sports are getting ready to start back up again.
Design strategist, what will it take from the O-line the first 3 games for Craig to believe they're up to snuff? 500-plus yards rushing, 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hurries, 2 pancakes a game. Please divulge. Appreciate y'all for putting this together every week. How about just not getting your quarterback concussed every single game? That'd be great. Or making it look like he's concussed every single game. Improvement to me would be a running back that could run up the middle and get more than a half a yard on any given situation. Improvement to me would being able to actually line up on 3rd and 1 and feel like you can actually convert that. Improvement to me would be having time to even throw a 10-yard pass. Improvement to me, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not asking for like numbers. I'm just asking for a football team that actually looks like they can run an offense without the quarterback being splattered a half second after he takes the snap, or splattered after holding onto the ball too long, or, another 3rd and long because you decided to just run into a brick wall because you can't block anybody. So let's waste this play running up the middle for no gain. Like that. That's the stuff that was like, there were times last year where they were basically calling an offense to try and protect the defense, which was an abysmal decision to make because they just put the defense out there more and more and more. And basically you were asking them to have to score for you because you just threw up the white flag at times on offense. So an offense that will go for the jugular, that's not out there just, oh, it's our turn? Okay. Oh, those 3 plays are done. Oh, well, like that's how it felt. So an offense that just has some fire, an offense that's going to talk a little noise, an offense that's not going to be, the you or anything like that, but just have some damn confidence about yourself. Look like you know what you're doing. Actually make a block for your quarterback. Make a hole for your running back that doesn't disappear after 0.0 seconds. Just look like an offense. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, they beat a mediocre UTSA team 63-14 in Waco in 2019. They should beat Texas Southern that badly.
They would have needed 3 games against UTSA last year to pull that off.
Right, so they need to look like that against Texas Southern. Texas State has a terrible defense, too. I mean, honestly, I think the first 2 games, we might be deceived a little bit. I think that they're going to move the ball pretty well, and if they're not running the ball well those first 2 games, they're probably not going to run the ball well the whole year just because you're not going to face weaker defenses than that. Even Kansas is probably going to have a better defense than those two teams. So, the running game for me is where I'm going to be looking. Obviously, the pass game, if you're giving up 4 sacks to Texas Southern and Texas State,
oh God,
you're in trouble. You're in trouble. In Game 3 against Kansas, you shouldn't be giving that up either. But I'll tell you this, if you are giving up 4 sacks a game, even if you're able to sneak by those first 3 games, I'm telling you right now, Iowa State, when they come to Waco, if you're giving up those kind of numbers and you can't run the ball, you're going to get blown out at home.
Oh, yeah.
That's just simply what will happen if they don't look better these first 3 games than they looked to start last year against Kansas, where they really didn't look that good. They just lucked into winning by the amount they did because of turnovers and the kickoff returns by Ebner.
Yeah.
You don't want to. I don't want to see that again.
No.
At all.
So in football, Bob had a follow-up post, and he really broke it down in like more football terms as far as like picking up blitzes and things like that. And that's all like he said it in a good way to where it's like football terms and all that, but it's basically what I'm saying too. Just look like a football team that knows what they're doing, and don't kill yourself over and over again because of screw up after screw up after screw up or missed assignment or just that stuff. They got to throw that out the window now. Like, get out there and play some football and look like you know what you're doing and actually have some fire about it somewhere other than just on defense.
Exactly. Move guys up front, be able to move Texas State defenders, be able to push the line a little bit, get a little bit of a push. When you're in goal line, when it's 1st and goal at the 1-yard line, can you score on first down?
Right.
Can you just put the ball in the end zone? Things like that. And then obviously, you want to see an organized team, a team that's just ready to go.
We'd see offense. Them get the ball at the 1.5-yard line and take 4 plays to try and kick a field goal eventually. That was basically what it felt like last year. And then, you punch it in on 2nd down and you spike the football. And maybe you don't do that because of a 15-yard penalty, but maybe if it's late in the game, you do that because, you're going to win anyway. I don't want, Michael Irvin out there, but just some fire, man, some confidence and some fire. And they had none of that last year on offense, anywhere to be seen. Yeah. So, I think we're all on the same page there. And football, Bob had a great response too, and I do appreciate the question, the design strategist. So Just Views, last 2 questions. Given the emphasis of the new strength conditioning staff, do injuries seem to be down compared to previous years?
I'd say it's still about injuries happen in football. It just is what it is. I think it's down from last year, and I would say, obviously, because COVID impacted that, I'd say it's about the same as 2019 was. I don't think it's crazy difference. I know the strength and conditioning staff, they do get a lot of credit because these guys look much more physically ready to go, but it's still the game of football. There's still going to be injuries. There's going to be things like that. As long as we're not seeing a ton of hamstring injuries and things along those lines, then I think they'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we'll see as the season plays out, but obviously everybody was not 100%. Even if they had an off season or whatever, they were still not 100% last year, ready to play football. Yeah. But they look good. You go out there and players look like they're supposed to look. I've asked tons of players now at this point. Vic Valoria has done a great job. They like him a lot. They like his staff a lot. It is a big difference from a year ago. All due respect to Corey Campbell and company, it's just a different thing now with Valoria, and that's why Aranda brought him in the mix because he had that familiarity with him, and I think it's going to pay off. But I don't know if it'll affect injury so much, but I definitely think you'll see a much stronger, faster, more physically confident team this season. So that was a good hire. C. Minus will close us out. Aside from the photo of Tyquan Thornton, is there anyone in practice who seems to be noticeably different physically? Any insight on actual lifting number increases amongst the team, considering the emphasis on lifting heavier? Don't have any specific info on actual lifting numbers. I know a bunch of guys are throwing around a little bit more weight, though.
Yeah, I don't have specifics on, this guy's squatting a little bit more or whatnot. I know that they've gotten a lot stronger.
I think somebody mentioned something, but I don't even know if we got into exact numbers the other day. But somebody was squatting more than they had been or whatever.
I haven't seen maxes or whatnot, the exact list of that. But as far as guys looking different, I would say as a team, they just look physically different. I'm seeing it from a ton of players. Garmin Randolph is one that I think we need to mention. Garmin looks like a totally different guy, especially from his freshman year to now. My goodness. At 265 now, he might even be bigger than that, to be honest, when the depth chart is updated, which it probably will be before the first game. I think that he's one. I think Tyrone Brown, not the freshman, but Tyrone Brown, the 2019 recruit, 2018 recruit, he looks very different at the jack position. He was hurt all spring, was held out. I think he's going to be a guy who could surprise some people, and he's got great size. Tony Nyanwu looks really good. There's a lot of guys that I could name. I'm not going to go through all of them, but yes, you're going to see major differences on the field for that first game. It's very fun to watch. Vic Valoria, like you said, he's done a tremendous job.
So, C. Mitness, thank you for the question. Thank you also, Just Views and Football Bob and the Design Strategist and Rusty Shack and Scotty B, the Bare Minimum, PB Pope, Grizz Air, Bear Love, Yankee Joe, Coach to Broker, Hound, and Doc and Brown Bear. Appreciate all of you for the questions this week. Hopefully we answered to your liking, or at least just answered, and do appreciate all of you for being involved. And we do expect fuller mailbags as the season starts to draw closer and we start to actually break down opponents and games and not just, what's coming up or what's in the air. It's around the corner.
Yeah, and I actually do have some insight on some of the COVID.
Okay, real quick.
Do you want to really quick? Yeah. If a player, coach has been vaccinated or tested positive within the last 180 days, they aren't subject to surveillance testing. If it's been within, then they are. So that's kind of one of the things that has been changed. The other stuff is still kind of being figured out, but I thought that was pretty notable. That kind of the contact tracing and things like that. If you have been vaccinated, but within 180 days.
All right. So, I'm not going to say go get vaxxed because, man, I saw suddenly people calling up angry or whatever, but, do whatever you want to do. But they will certainly have the best interest of the players in mind, and I expect that there will be some tweaking to that and whatnot. But, man, I'd really just love to not give a dadgum about COVID rules and all that, but here we are. At least there's more of optimism now, as far as just the season, and it's not quite as chaotic as it was this time a year ago with having no idea what this was going to look like or even if it was even going to be pulled off. And hey, they did it, and now here we are for round 2, but COVID's still hanging around, so oh well. All right, that'll do it for us this week. Big thanks to Jack for producing today. Big thanks again to all of you who are a part of the mailbag, and thanks to all of you for listening. We'll be out at practice, and then we'll have some more for you later on the website and just more throughout the rest of the week as we cover pre-season training like a glove and the build-up to Texas State here in a little about 3 weeks from now before they kick off in San Marcos. So until next time, for Grayson Grudenhafer, for Jack, I'm Craig Smoke. This has been the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.